Welcome to Media and Monuments, presented by Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Media and Monuments features conversations with industry professionals speaking on a range of topics of interest to screen-based media makers.
Get ready for a wild carriage ride and more gossip from Lady Whistledown. Season 3 of Bridgerton is now available on Netflix. The series features a new pair of lovers, Penelope Featherington and Colin Bridgerton. But will they make it to the altar when a big secret is revealed? I'm your host, Sandra Abrams, and in this Media and Monuments podcast episode, you'll hear from many of the talented below-the-line production leads. In April, I had the opportunity to chat with them online. The behind-the-scenes team members shared secrets on how they did their job bringing the Regency-era romantic drama from Shonda Rhimes to life. You'll learn more about the production design, the flowers, the costume, the hair and makeup, how those sexy dance scenes were done. And finally, I chat with the music team, including Oscar-winner Kris Bowers, on the mood he created composing for Bridgerton Season 3. In this first set of interviews, you'll hear from production designer Alison Gertshort and the florist Philip Corpse. They were paired together and they spilled the tea on what is real and what is fake in those Bridgerton drawing rooms, the palace ballrooms. Plus, you'll learn how a certain mirror came to be part of the design for a steamy love scene. If you want to be a production set person, listen to what Alison has to say in order to get your start. One of the things that I wanted to first talk to you about, Alison, was the fact that you've been with the show for other seasons. What challenges did you find to make season 3 from a production design standpoint for Bridgerton as much of a fantasy as it has been in the past for the audience?
Well, I suppose having been with the show since season 1, I was an art director on season 1 and 2, so I helped build the world in the first place. So it was a continuation of that world, really, for season 3.
So, and is there anything that you found particularly, as you wanted to do something different? Was there a particular piece of art or a particular furniture or design that you wanted to put in that you weren't able to do for seasons 1 and 2 that you said, okay, I'm going to do something this for season 3?
I mean, you do have ideas when you're working for a designer. They have their own ideas and you help to achieve their ideas. So, of course, you have your own ideas while you're doing that process. So I did get to put a few of those ideas into practice on season 3 for sure. Yeah. And it was nice to have the opportunity to do so.
Well, I read that in Lady Cowper's house, you have a motif of a certain Greek mythical character. Why did you do that for Lady Cowper's house?
So the Cowper house we haven't seen before. We do know Cressida as a character, and she comes across as being not a very nice character, putting it politely. But this season, for the first time, we see into her home life, and we realise that actually she's not in a very good position herself. And she's very much under the thumb of a very domineering father. So their space had to be quite masculine and domineering and quite dark because they're not actually very nice people, it turns out. So when we were thinking about that space, I wanted to bring in some sort of Greek, very masculine plasterworks to adorn the walls, just to kind of stamp the sort of the full masculinity on the space. So there's nothing very feminine in that space at all, apart from Cressida, who sits there in her beautiful, very frilly pink finery. And I rather like the contrast of that.
So, Philip, I want to ask you as the florist, because we know that flowers play a critical role in creating these fantasies, especially when you look at the ballroom scenes and you have these sky-high flowers. How did you work with Alison and the production and design team in creating these scenes? What was the conversations like?
It's usually, obviously a lot of it is scripted, but I usually go with Alison and Alison's set deck's direction on what the theme of the ball is about, whether it's of a season or and also what the characters are. So we go with conversations like that. So color palettes, obviously. So if it's a Bridgerton's, it's like the soft blue colors and things like that. And the Featheringtons, we go for sort of brighter colors, the brasher colors. So that's kind of how the conversations usually go forward. And then we base it on kind of designs, so we did some for the Queen's Ball, and we did a very sort of Dutch master kind of style, like the old paintings, but in her color palette. And the red rose is obviously a flower that we kind of associate with the Queen. So we kind of have conversations about that. So we make sure we use those sort of elements and things like that.
Right. I understand the roses were the flower of choice in the Regency period. And what other flower types did you bring in, though?
Oh gosh, we've got a lot of flower types actually. Yeah. We brought in gladiolus for Penelope. We brought in sort of red hot pokers. And there were some orchids snuck in, I believe. All different types. Blossom, blossom for one of the balls.
Yeah, we use the full range of florals, don't we?
Full range, yeah. There's, I don't think there's much we don't use actually, apart from the tropicals, probably. They weren't actively around in Georgian time. Some were, because they had the hot houses and things like that. But and fruits as well. We use a lot of fruits in some of the displays. Pineapples, peaches, apples, and things like that. So add that. It's not just the flowers. We add in elements like that as well.
You're on the set. There's, I would imagine, a mixture of fake flowers and fresh flowers. But being on the set all day long, how did you keep the flowers fresh?
To be fair, it's mostly fake that we use because they're sustainable, and we can manipulate the stems, and also we can reuse them, repurpose them for other sets, and also use them for pickups later on. Anything
but
really.
When we have fresh, we have doubles, don't we?
We do have doubles.
So we keep one off the set in a bucket of water, so that if the one that we're shooting with, we do have to use real for some of the action props, don't we?
But when it's close to camera, it's usually fresh, isn't it? Generally, like you say, action props. Yeah. So if it's servants preparing flowers, for example, or one of the characters holding a bouquet, then it's all fresh. Because obviously it just looks more. It looks better on camera that way.
In addition to that, I wonder, what is that process like? How did that start? Like, you've got, all these worker bees putting all the flowers together. What's behind the scenes going on there?
Behind the scenes, sometimes we're using some of the flowers that are already in the store. So Bridgerton has a big store of fake flowers from the other seasons, and then we bring in new elements as well.
But you have a whole team working on it, don't you?
Yeah, so I have a whole team basically. Depending on the scale of the project, there's probably about 10 of us probably working on it all together. And then there's a lot of mechanics behind some of the displays. So if it's a location, it's a little bit more difficult because we can't attach to some of these period properties. But if it's a set, then we can kind of, whack in staples and put in chicken wire and all the ugly things that you don't see on the camera, obviously. There's a lot of construction that goes behind anchoring some of these things, like onto porticos or building a great big urn or something like that.
And just the scaffolding, even within a big display.
Yes.
You have to have, you use Oasis and...
Yeah, so we use a dry floral foam for the silk flowers, for the fake flowers. So that's really strong, and that gets reused over and over again, because obviously they get moved a lot around the sets as well, to bring in kit and camera and stuff like that. So they have to be quite rigid. So there's a lot that goes underneath making them look the way they are.
It looks fantastic when I see the ballrooms, and I just go, wow, how did you create this fantasy and all the flowers? And I guess that gets back to a question for you, Allison. What was the, in creating these scenes, because it does look so grand, is there any tricks that you did in putting those sets together? that you and your team said, okay, we're going to do this and this will create scale?
I think with the ballroom scenes particularly, they are of a scale anyway, because we have to accommodate enough space for all of the extras to inhabit. So, and there's always dancing. And so we work closely with the choreographer Jack to make sure that there's enough space centrally or wherever the dancing is going to happen. And then we build around that. The ballrooms, they sort of have a life of their own, really, because they need to incorporate all the walking and talking, all the entrances and exits, all the dancing. There has to be an orchestra. Very often the queen is there. She often has to be elevated above the masses so that she's looking down on the scene. So you have to kind of build all these elements in whilst keeping within sort of the theme of the ball. It's not so much that there's tricks that we use, because whatever you see is built for real in the camera. We don't do a lot of VFX, unless sometimes we do the ceilings in VFX and add those afterwards, because obviously if you look up in our sets, you've got all of the lights above, so you can't put the ceiling in as well, otherwise you wouldn't be able to light it properly. So, but that's really the only thing. In terms of tricks that we use when we're building, we do a lot of printing. We do a lot of printed floors, for example, where we can't lay, a real mosaic marble floor, for example. We would maybe print it on a lino and use that instead.
Wow, I had no idea that. So we learned something new here. So, but
all the tricks of the trade away.
Doing it at home now.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, because we do have, for our members in Women in Film and Video, we have a lot of students who are just out of university, but we also have people who are members and they're retired and getting into film and television as their next career. So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to do production design or be part of such a fantastic show and doing the floor arrangements on such a grand scale?
It's difficult to get into. Obviously, everybody knows it is quite hard to get into film and TV work in general. I think you just if you have a real passion for it, it has to be something that you're very passionate about, because it's really hard work. It's grueling, long hours. There's not much in the way of home life. So you sort of have to buy into the whole thing, and it suits certain people and not others. I think if you are passionate enough to keep persisting and to keep trying, you'll probably get there, because somebody somewhere will need something doing, and you happen to be the person that they pick the phone up to just as they're thinking, oh, I need that. And they're on the phone and they say, I'm a scenic artist or I'm a graphic designer. And you go, perfect, I was just looking for one. And, that's your opportunity. You have to recognize the opportunities when they come your way, and you have to jump on them, never let them go, because they don't come along too often.
No, that's true. I mean, I think I go with Alison on that. Passion is very important. It is a hard environment to be in. I mean, it's a fun and it's an amazing environment to be in, but it's also, like you say, long hours. It can be quite antisocial. It's and you're dealing with a lot of personalities as well, aren't you?
Yeah,
different,
absolutely.
creatives, and sometimes you're translating someone else's vision a lot of the time. So that's something you have to work around, and sometimes you're going against your own aesthetic as well, which is a great challenge. Sometimes that can be part of the film industry in that term. So I think as a florist, I think definitely to be passionate, and I think you have to understand that things change very much last minute as well.
And be adaptable.
Yeah, you have to be adaptable. You have to be prepared for production not liking it or loving it, or or wanting more or less, that kind of thing. So,
but I mean, we're a really good collaborative team.
We're a great team. Yeah,
we've built up a really lovely team of exceptionally talented people. We're very lucky.
The talent on Bridgerton's amazing. I just look round and I think, and also like we were saying in an earlier interview, how we're like a Bridgerton family. And I think it's really important actually to be in that industry, is to be able to get on well with people and to be able to kind of keep calm under pressure and that kind of thing. It's very, very important.
You need to find people that you love to work with, because then it's not really like work. It's
because you work
like
on top
fun.
of one another, don't you?
You do.
You
Absolutely.
do. And I think that's really important personality wise.
Yeah, you have to be respectful of other people's, you meet people and you don't know what they've got going on at home. So give people space, be kind, always treat people with respect, and never ever ask them to do something that you wouldn't personally do.
And I think my advice would be to not go in with too big an ego either. I don't think that just
no place for ego.
Doesn't go. It doesn't.
There really
work.
isn't. But there are quite a lot of characters who have got egos, and they seem to do quite well. But But we try and avoid it on Bridgerton.
I think be a character, be an individual, be out there, be crazy, but
be humble as well.
Be
be fun and have a nice time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think so.
Good advice. Yeah.
That's wonderful. One last question for Allison. I wanted to ask about the mirror. Much has been made about the mirror. Was that something that you had to source? Did you go, okay, Regency period mirrors? What can you share about that?
So, yes, obviously it was scripted. It was a scripted prop that we knew we had to find. And so my lovely set decorator, Natalie, she set about sourcing whatever she could find in the way of Regency style mirrors that would work, that would do the trick. So, we looked and we scoured the country, and we had a short list, and we got approval on one or two of them. And you always have to have backup options as well, because you put something in the set and it looks fantastic, but then when you put the camera in there, it doesn't necessarily work. Maybe it's not wide enough or tall enough. So there's always 2 or 3 things for something that is so important for a script point. You always have backups in the wings waiting to be whipped in case they say, change, we don't like this one.
Philip, the floor is for Bridgerton and season 3, and Allison, production designer. Thank you both so much for spending time with us and sharing information behind the scenes about Bridgerton season 3. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. In this set of interviews, I chat with costume designer John Glaser and hair and makeup person Erika Okvist. She won an Emmy for her work on season 2 of Bridgerton. John shares insight on how the look for Colin Bridgerton, played by Luke Newton, evolves over the years. And we learned from Erika how the actors stay so fresh-looking during 10-hour days on the set. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. And to talk about Bridgerton season 3, they're back. So, John, I wanted to start with you. I know a lot has been made about the women and their fashion, but I want to first start talking about the men, because they're not getting as much attention.
No.
They're wearing lace, they're wearing ruffles, velvets, brocades. That's not something that we're seeing in today's world, especially with people working from home and wearing sweatpants. So tell me about putting the look together for the Bridgerton men, and what did you want to do differently for season 3, especially when it's featuring Colin as the love interest?
Well, with Colin, if we all know season 1 and 2, he wore lots of pastel colors and looked very Regency. He was still a boy, but he's been away now for a year, 6 months. He's traveled. He's been on a ship. He's seen the world. He's been in dirt and sand. So when he comes back, we wanted him to be a leading man, and not a leading man like Cary Grant in a nice gray suit. We wanted him to be the Marlboro man, like the fantasy, I guess. I'm not a woman, but of what women like, a guy on a horse, no frills, dark colors, to make him look taller, to make him look like he's got swagger, he's got movement, he's got boots, dirt, maybe smells a little bit, unshaven. He's that guy. And he's come back into a town where everyone else, well, you see him getting dressed in the carriage. Everyone else is still prim and proper. So that we wanted to give him that new look. The other men, which people, Dougie Hawkes, who works with me with the men, and a lot of people will notice this season is that men are wearing brocades. They are wearing, this is the next season. We started this season taking away white shirts and giving them pastel shirts, taking away lace, giving them pattern jackets, pattern pants. We've even taken the bootstrap off under the pant because it doesn't look, it's annoying to the eye. And as the seasons progress, the men will become not so uniform-like, and they're becoming more varied in their looks. And it's based on, we've done research of it's really just current fashion. It's looking at Gucci runway and Fendi runway and how everything is being mixed up. So we are incorporating what current fashion has for men. And you are right, because we realize all the attention goes to the women, and now we've got to start bringing the men up to their level.
I think you definitely do it, because I think I've seen some of the photo images and some of the previews, and Colin does look very hot and very dapper looking. So thank you for that, John.
Good. Yay.
Good eye candy.
Yeah.
So Erika, for you, what was the challenge for this season as far as doing the hair or the makeup, especially with Penelope's look in Bridgerton for season 3? She's definitely a woman who's like, I'm on a mission, I'm going to get married. So we all know when women are on a mission, they're changing up their looks. So what did you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's traditional. I mean, I don't know how many of my girlfriends that go like, oh my God, did you have did you argue with your boyfriend or whatever? They cut their fringe or whatever it is that they've done, overplucked their eyebrows. You know it. It happens. We do that. And I think that Penelope has thought about this very strongly. She don't think that she can have Colin. She just wants to get married. She wants to get out of the clutches of her mother. She wants to have her own life, and she goes in with all that she has. And we know that she's a very intelligent woman, and she now reveals that she's actually also quite sophisticated now that her mother doesn't choose what she's going to spend or wear. And then, you know, when her first sort of glow up doesn't go so well, I think that what she does with the looks is that she's still keeping this elegance that she now realizes that she has and understands, but maybe takes a step back so that she's not so in your face, so that she can scan the room and figure out the next game plan, because she still needs to get married. She doesn't want to be her mother's maid. And I think that, you know, visually, we kind of done that together. The reason why I chose...
It's actually based on, you know, you're from Women in Film, but you based her on women from film.
Yes, exactly. Like old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because
she's one of the few, she's a working woman.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You know, and she's the only one really who is a working woman because of her secret identity.
Yeah. And the reason why we went down that is, first of all, it's a very strong, iconic look. But when you're making a decision on where to go with the look for a glow up and the sex up, you have to sort of look at her face and see what she can carry off. And this was a look who very much suited Nicola, and that's the reason why we chose that. So there are a lot of reasons. You know, you've got an idea in your head, but then it has to work with this particular face or this particular features, and that's just where it ended up. And I think, you know, she wears it very, very well.
And just by chance, the silhouette we took her out of the 1813 Empire silhouette, moved her more towards 1820, and that silhouette resembles a little more of the 1950s, which coordinates with Lauren Bacall and Marilyn Monroe and the shape that we've given her. Just by happenstance, that's happened.
Right. And they are strong women, as you know, Ron, like, you know, Lauren Bacall and Key Largo and those types of shows.
And but those women owned, I always say this, you never knew what Lauren Bacall, what she was wearing or why she was wearing. She just looked beautiful, and she owned the room. And that's how we wanted Penelope to be. It's not anything specific, but she has the power and she owns that room.
I wanted to talk about how, when you thought about season 3 for Bridgerton, because Cressida gets a much more prominent role in season 3. She's still the mean girl, but what did you think about, you know, did you think about how to change up her look? What whether it was the clothing or the hair and makeup, because previously Cressida was wearing those fantastical hairdos. So did you do anything different for that particular character as she plays a bigger role?
First of all, that woman, Jess, she could pull off anything. She's basically a model, so there was no limitations at all, really, with what we could or couldn't do with her. So what we try to do, again, is to team up with John. If he had got like a really good shape, there might be a collar or there be shoulders or whatever it is, then we kind of use that within her hairstyle. We also have got some of the hair is quite transparent and see-through, which is that thing where we realize that actually she's quite a fragile young woman. And I wanted to really make sure that sort of was visually there as well, almost like wearing her heart on her sleeve, because she can't talk to anybody about this, So yeah, it was just, again, trying to make sure that from the top to the very bottom, there is no harsh lines, it just feels like a visual symphony, between the costume and the hair and the makeup.
And for us, I mean, we picked a color palette very specifically of pinks, and we, as you've seen, enlarged her sleeves and the upper part of her body, because we wanted to make her look like she was a butterfly trapped somewhere, like you'll find out. I can't say, but there's reasons why she's mean, and she's hiding behind not in a cocoon, but like a butterfly trapped in a mausoleum, basically, because she's such a fragile looking person. To make things like her sleeves bigger makes her even more delicate, and you'll have a lot of sympathy for her.
And I mean, it's like an armor, isn't it? A little bit.
It is armor, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And also, it's all of her peacock feathers out, because she's desperate to get married. So, she has to pull out all the stops.
Yeah.
And flowers and feathers are big part of the accoutrements, aside from the jewelry.
Yes.
And these accessories. So,
and we've also her color world, Eloise's color world, and Penelope's color world are all in the same playing field now for a while, which is so that you don't know where they're traveling to, exactly within the script. It gives them all an equal playing field. Yes, exactly.
So, Erika, I wanted to ask you about you're doing the hair and makeup, and then everybody goes to the set. They're there for 10 to 12 hours. How do you keep everything looking fresh? Are you there on set, or is someone from your team on set?
So
how does that work? What's the behind the scenes?
Every single person in my team has got up to 3 to 4 actors that they are taking care of, and they're in charge of their actual continuity. Because, we might shoot one thing one day, and then 3 months later we pick it up when they go outside, and they need to have the hair exactly the same. Therefore, it's really important that this one person takes care of these people so that they know exactly, because I don't know how many actual casts we've got, but we're in the 100, aren't we? And then we got the supporting artists, which is even more. So that I couldn't do that. I had to concentrate on only the design. So when these actors go onto set, if it's a new look, I follow them to set to make sure that they look good on camera. And then I will leave them with my wonderful team, and they will make sure they look flawless. And that they do their job very well indeed, because they do look flawless. Whereas I then go back and then continue designing, because every single time you see a person on screen with a new dress, they've got a new look. And also there's a lot of new introductions with new characters. I have to fit them, haircuts and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's very much a collaboration. I would never force a look upon an actor. We have a sort of a conversation before anything happens. And then also, the makeup artists and hair artists who are working with this actor might also have an input. And I think that that's what makes this so beautiful, is that we collaborate with each other. Nothing is set in stone. And I think you can see that it's a collaboration. And the other reason why it's so important that one person is taking care, let's say the person is taking care of Cressida, the person who does her hair and the person who does her makeup knows her look DNA, which means if you saw Cressida anywhere, even though she's got loads of different crazy hairstyles, they're always different. If you saw her in a silhouette, you knew it was Cressida immediately. And that's really important, that you recognize that character, even though she's something totally different.
But those actors are maintained all day long from the time they leave the makeup trailer to the set. And the same thing with costumes. Once they're dressed and they're approved and we say that's the look, there's someone with them all day long that's constantly making them look the same as when they left the trailer in the...
Even if it's raining, if in the wind, got silk and under rain, they will still make them look like flawless. Yeah. We've got rain in, like, I don't know, the Queen's wig. What do you do? These people who are on set are magicians. They got everything. They also make sure, as much as possible, that people are not cold. They make sure that, they're not being burnt under the sun, so they got sunscreen.
And everything on camera looks, I'm sure to the eye, looks nice and fresh and pretty, but at the end of the day, it's sweaty and smelly and dirty, and it's been through quite a lot. It's not as glamorous as it appears. It's all a fantasy and a facade.
And it's not just the actors that are sweaty, tired, and broken.
Yeah.
John, fantastic costumes. We do feel the fantasy. And Erika, thank you so much for the beautiful hairstyles and makeup. And thank you both for talking to Women in Film and Video and our podcast, Media and Monuments. I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Finally, in the last set of interviews, you will hear from choreographer Jack Murphy. He explains why a certain couple is doing the tango, even though it was not invented until the 1880s, and the music team of Kris Bowers, the composer, Justin Camps, the music supervisor, and Sarah Bridges, another music supervisor. The team explains how they got their start in the business, but also how they created the romantic tone for the fantasy period piece. I want to talk about Bridgerton in season 3, because what's happening, especially with the music, you're bringing modern melodies to this proper world of the Regency world. And last season, you had songs like From Rihanna's Diamonds, you had Madonna's Material Girl, Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know. So what were you going to do for season 3? Because it is focused on Colin and Penelope and their story. What did you conceive in saying, okay, we have a different couple? How did you outdo yourself? What were your challenges in doing that, crafting the music for this season?
Yeah, I mean, we take a look at the main characters and the type of story that we're telling, that's being told in the show this season, and it's more of a friends to lovers theme than we have, and we're seeing like characters that people have now grown up with for 2 seasons, now getting their chance to kind of like, come out of their shells and fall in love together, and so it gives us a whole different set of themes that we're going to look at when we're thinking of the music for the season. And I can't wait for everyone to discover all the covers that are going to be in there this season. It's going to be very fun. But we had a lot of fun playing with those tropes. Yeah.
I understand that you gave the showrunner a playlist with the best of the Vitamin String Quartet versions of pop song. So can you give us any insight as to what was on that playlist?
Oh, I mean, we've sent a ton of Vitamin String Quartet songs down. We were, they put out some new albums this year that you can look and see. They put out like a bunch of Prince covers, a bunch of Taylor Swift covers. So we had a combination of all sorts of things that went over to them on that. Also stuff by people that aren't Vitamin String Quartet too, because there's a lot of other groups.
I was going to say, it's amazing how many, between Justin and myself, the amount of covers we get sent. And we're like forwarding them over to Justin and being like, check these out. But there's a lot of, we get approached by a lot of, I guess, classical players or quartets that are suggesting songs for the show as well.
And I don't want to give out any specific titles, just because even if they didn't make it into this season, there's always more coming. So we like to keep them in play in case we want to come back to something.
I understand in season 2, you played the harpsichord, which you do have a piano background. I read that you have your master's in jazz study from Juilliard. So what instrument are you playing behind the scenes or, that you can tell us about and share with us for this particular season 3 on Bridgerton?
Yeah, unfortunately, piano is kind of the only instrument I play, so it's only different versions of piano. So it's piano forte for Queen Charlotte, just regular piano for this one. So, yeah, but it was a lot of fun to figure out to invite other collaborators to bring a different sound to this season as well.
So, Sarah, I wanted to ask you your role in putting this all together. What can you share with us about your role for season 3 in Bridgerton?
So my role since kind of through season 1 to end of season 3 so far, I'm the on-camera supervisor. So I'm a music person on the ground in the UK across all the shoot dates. Oh, bless you. So I collaborate a lot with Justin and the showrunner and directors and producers in terms of like us looking at like doing script breakdowns, looking at what scenes we need music for, getting song ideas across. I'm working quite closely with cast in terms of any on-camera performances. Also, obviously, collaborating with Jack across. He loves to talk to me in dance language, and I don't understand it, but I'm getting better at it, aren't I? He's like talking to me in quadrilles and stuff. Music, like, I don't know. Yeah, and then I also work a lot with like art department. Like, I'm kind of across everything that's happening through pre-production and shooting, and then it is very much over to Justin at that stage, on Kris, obviously, but in terms of the source music aspect or any on-camera performances. So, and that can be from like getting, coaching lessons for the cast to, overseeing anything performing on camera and hiring musicians, etc. Any pre-records, so like in the past, I've done all of the opera pre-records here in the UK, or piano, So it's quite varied, and it's a lot of the difference with me on this particular show is I don't see it through in post. It goes used stateside and Justin looks after all that. But actually we are working together quite a lot through the pre-production and production side of things. And as Justin suggested, there's a lot of different songs that might be played on the day of filming, but that might change in post as well. So it's all quite an ongoing experiment. And I don't always know what the final result's going to be until I sit down and watch the show when it ends. So, in terms of the actual final music choices. But yeah, it's fun.
Well, it sounds like there is a lot of collaboration, especially between the music and the choreography. And that's why I wanted to ask Jack. It's kind of like the chicken and egg question. So you come up with the choreography idea and then you go to the music people, or the music people already says, Justin and Kris says, okay, we've already decided on this. You have to go, no, I want this choreography. So therefore, how does that work?
There's never a no, never ever no, has never been a no, which is fantastic. But we are all on the same page, no pun intended, but every single one of us on this screen right now, our ideas come from the writers. So I don't start the choreography from the music, I start the choreography from our wonderful team of writers. What's been absolutely superb, I'm working with Sarah from word go, is that I'm not a pop music person, and I've been able to get lots of support both from Sarah and Justin about which tracks would be suitable for this set of circumstances for these characters right now. And so after season 1, Justin and Sarah send me this whole catalogue of Vitamin String Quartet and others, wonderful, since, and I get them too. These composers send them to me too, and I forward them on, which is fabulous. So it starts from the script, and then I get this wonderful catalogue, and then if I want to do something like a polonaise, and I want the stress to be a little bit more on 2 rather than 1, I go back to Justin, and Justin does his magic, and it continues to do. So that's our process, and it's fun. It's really cool way of working.
Well, Jack, the choreography especially for the Regency period was for people at that time. That was the only time when they were dancing when people were able to touch.
Yeah, and to get away from their chaperone, which is, not just the touching is very, very high stakes, which is great, but also to speak, which is why we have so much dialogue on dancers as well. They're able to say things privately.
I understand there is a scene with Benedict, and they're doing has a bit of a tango influence, and the tango is a very sexy dance. So, what was the behind the scenes discussion like when you wanted to introduce this?
Do you know, I love that you picked up on that, because we were discussing, because Regency, I would be talking reels and jigs primarily, and a waltz, although the waltzing I do in Bridgerton is quite modern in comparison to what they were dancing Regency. We're dancing what we call an open hold, and I often use a closed hold in Bridgerton. So it's interesting. It was a track that Justin sent me, and because of the relationship between Benedict and Lady Tilly, and because it was at the Inventors Ball, so it came from the script, it was the Inventors Ball, and I had to go, invent, what does that mean? Why should I choose anything like this in an Inventors Ball? Well, for me, an invention is about creation, so it's a bit monstery, it's a little bit like Frankenstein, and so I wanted something that was really kind of quivery and had lots of kind of, I don't know, does this work, does this not work, I don't know, the process of invention. And they just sent me this wonderful tango modern piece that had a tango feel for me. It has a tango rhythm in it, so it's a quick slow, and it was just the bowing that they were using, and it was because of the quiver, and it's all very sexual between them. So, and of course, Jess said, "Go for it." Again, I said, "Jess, this is a tango. This is not a reel." And she said, "Lovely, great, good, go for it, wonderful." And that's how it came about.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing that insight with us. People can look for that scene. I wanted to also ask the musicians and wanted to talk about licensing for Bridgerton. Who does licensing? Are there challenges there? And according to Jack, you're never told no, so, and you're always told yes. So can anybody give any insight into the licensing? Because that's one of the issues for our membership is licensing and researching and making sure attributions.
Yeah, I handle for all the covers and any other, like library pieces or classical pieces that we're clearing. I handle all the clearance and licensing for that. And yeah, it's interesting, it's a lot of managing the budget that we have for each episode. I would say luckily for us, there's a lot of excitement about having your cover in Bridgerton. So we haven't received a lot of no's. Not that we haven't gotten any no's in the past, but this season we got all yeses, so that's good. But it can be tricky, and we're often dealing with these really successful writers and artists. And so, sometimes they command high fees, and we have to make sure we can manage that within the budget we've been given.
And I wanted to ask, is that a long process? Because you're saying, okay, we want to use this song, but does it take a while? Or do you usually get a quick turnaround?
It can vary. Yeah, it kind of varies depending on the rights holders. Some people are quick to respond. Other people, it might take a couple of weeks or something. It's not usually a drawn out process where it's over like a month or something, but it can honestly depend on each individual song. But yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your team and working on Bridgerton. So how many hours is that when you're working on putting this music together? Because there's an expectation that people have with Bridgerton and the fantasy and escape, and the music plays such a big part of that. So how long is, can you give it, like when you were doing the first scene for season 3 or, the first episode, how long does that take and how long are you working?
Oh boy, I think for me, like my first emails on this season are all the way back in 2022. So if you're gonna go, yeah, I don't know how many hours, but there's also been several delays this season due to strikes and stuff, so things have been stretched out more than usual. But I don't know if there's a specific set of hours, but we're working while it's in production. We're working almost every day probably on stuff, working ahead from things in the scripts, and then once we get into post, that's it's maybe not working every day, but we're working constantly to get things cleared or pitch new options.
May I answer that question?
Yes,
absolutely.
I know not music, but it's interesting you say, because I think people would be absolutely staggered to hear this. So any ball that takes place, my team are the dancers. the extraordinary dancers of Bridgerton for the last 3 seasons, and of course Queen Charlotte. If we film a ball on a Sunday, they've learned the dances on the Friday and the Saturday, and they film them on the Sunday live. You know,
Fantastic.
and the actors on average have 3-hour sessions to learn their dances. So, and the only reason for that is it's not Bridgerton being mean or anything. They're filming, or they're having horse riding lessons, or they're learning to play the harpsichord with Kris Bowers. So, so
You're learning from someone wonderful.
I just, time for me, I'm on it all the way through, but for the actors, it's really time pressed, and for the dancers who are they're just magic. They really are beautiful artists. They learn the dances of the balls 2 days before.
That's a quick turnaround, and that's a lot of learning to do immediately. I wanted to know if you could also talk about, so when you are on set, you're bringing in so many musicians. What is that like? And are the musicians, you're putting music in later, but it has to look realistic. It has to look like, oh, the musicians are going at the same time in all these dances. Anybody, Sarah or Chris or Justin, if you could speak to, how is that on set with the musicians?
That kind of falls to me most of the time. We actually work with the NSO. I've had it since we started filming season 3. I've had a baby and he's 13 months already. So that's how long I've been working. Congratulations. As I said, there's been some delays and there's been like writing strikes and stuff. It's obviously they just take a bit longer. But I was like, what's that orchestra called that I work with every season on Bridgerton? My brain isn't working. But they're called the National Symphony Orchestra. But the NSO, we work a lot with the players from that. And most of the time, they're miming because the music's going to be changed in post. Sometimes they play a bit if there's close-ups and stuff. And we're obviously getting them to play the instrument fully. And then there's other scenes that it depends. We've done like live recordings of trumpets and like various other kind of when there's smaller ensembles. But a lot of the bigger ball scenes tend to be miming on camera. And then the more intricate kind of, obviously the piano pieces, like Francesca, she wanted to, I think you'll find most cast always want to have a good go at learning the piece and being able to play it themselves. So there's been like quite a lot of coaching sessions, and particularly early on with Phoebe, for example, she was, like, no, I'm going to learn to play the piano, and had never played the piano in her life at that point, and was, by the end, was doing pretty well at it. And like whether we'd like choose select pieces of sections of the music where the camera would be literally on her hands, and that we would do that, but they would be performing live. So yeah, so there was kind of, a bit of a mix of everything, really, to be honest. But yeah, luckily able to tap into the guy called Justin who runs the NSO, and they just love being part of it. And it's also obviously great for a lot of players to, have quiet periods as well, and just keeps them busy. Because there's a lot of on-camera performance minutes, and the balls can run across 2 to 4 days.
I wanted to circle back on the choreography and ask you a question, Jack. So you're training and teaching the actors to do the dance, but once they're in costume, is there any changes that come about because they are in now their period costumes, and women are wearing long gloves and they start pulling on them? And any changes that came about once they were in the costumes?
Because I've worked with Dougie since day one, who's the associate costume designer, we've always had prototypes of dresses that now have trains, so that we actually don't have those problems on set. So that is all addressed because, on set, time is money. And if I haven't already addressed that, it's my responsibility as the movement director and the choreographer as well to raise. And shoes come to rehearsals, and practice dresses come to rehearsals, and gloves if need be. And also we speak about Cressa at the time that the necklace was undressed and blamed the class. So all of that is dealt with almost like it's a rehearsal for theatre. It would be very remiss to leave that to the day. But it isn't just as a costume, because in my world, the world of theatre, we don't say they wear costumes, we say they wear clothes, because that society spent a lot of money on buying those clothes for a reason.
Kris, I wanted to ask you one final question. when you look back on season 3, can you sum up the music, or what is it, something, the feeling that or emotion that you want people to walk away with, when they listen to the music for Bridgerton season 3?
Yeah, I think the season has a lot more fun to it in the score. I think the score, not only in terms of some of the themes, but also just the way that we approach it tonally has a lot more lightness and fun. Maybe that's a bit of what Justin said in terms of this being much more about friends that fall in love. But, it has the stakes, I think, feel high when we're talking about Penelope's identity and all of those things. But as far as like their relationship, I feel like it's a much more fun approach to the score.
Well, thank you, Jack, Justin, Kris, and Sarah, so much for speaking to me, Sandra Abrams, and Women in Film and Video. I appreciate it very much. And congratulations on Bridgerton season 3.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
To watch season 3 of Bridgerton, go to www.netflix.com/Bridgerton.
Thank you for listening to Media and Monuments, a service of Women in Film and Video. Please remember to review, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. For more information about WIF, please visit our website at WIF as in Frank, V as in Victor.org. Media and Monuments is produced by Sandra Abrams, Candace Block, Brandon Ferry, and Tara Jabari, and edited by Emma Klein and Juliana Yellen, with audio production and mix by Steve Lack Audio. For more information about our podcast, visit mediaandmonuments.com.